Well, it's a long story, but long story short, I actually wanted a name that wasn't mine, because I have like this French name, and when you're using a French name in the music industry, you sort of um, imagine that it's going to be like a French variété, which is like French, yeah, pop music in French. And I don't do that, so I was like sending the wrong message. So, and I came to Horus because, well, it is linked to the god, the Egyptian god Horus, Horus. My name is Aurus because, I'm not an Egyptian god.
Hey, welcome to the Monique on the Mic podcast. I'm your host, Monique B. Thomas. This show is your go-to resource for professional and aspiring singers. Every Monday, join me for solo episodes and insightful interviews where I share real artist stories, practical strategies, and mindset shifts. Whether you're just starting out or already on your journey, you'll find the tools you need to transform your vocal path and feel supported. I keep it real, I keep it funny, and it's always useful and up to date. Hello, Aurus, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm finding you.
Good, good. Now, I'm calling him Aurus, but I've known him for so long, and I affectionately call you Picot, but everybody's supposed to call you Aurus because that is the name that you're working under. So how did you come?
Yeah. Well, it's a long story, but long story short, I actually wanted a name that wasn't mine, because I have like this French name, and when you're using a French name in the music industry, you sort of imagine that it's going to be like a French variété, which is like French, yeah, pop music in French. And I don't do that, so I was like sending the wrong message. So, and I came to Horus because, well, it is linked to the god, the Egyptian god Horus, Horus. My name is Aurus because, I'm not an Egyptian god.
You look like you could be Egyptian, though.
I could. But yeah, and the eye of Horus, this Egyptian eye that we see everywhere, is a symbol of intuition, seeing things beyond matter. And that spoke to me a lot. I was like, well, to me, that's what music is actually, because, it's something that you send and you receive, but you cannot, touch it. And actually the very first track that I wrote under this name, for my previous album, my debut album as Horus, it was a mystical thing actually, because you know, every time I just improvise and try and find a melody, I just go with some gibberish words, and then I try to, use some of the words or sounds that I liked, and then write proper lyrics to them. On that very song, my gibberish had a meaning actually. So it was kind of like an intuitive, automatic writing, and yeah, the only thing I did is just translate the chorus into Creole because I wanted it to be in Creole. But other than that, I didn't touch many things because it had meaning, and so I was like, okay, there's something, and so yeah, that's some of the reasons why Horus.
Okay. So just so our listeners know you, because I mean, I've known you since what, I think 2005, I met you in Bordeaux.
Yeah, probably.
In Bordeaux at the CM school. And so I've known you for a long time, and I've seen your evolution firsthand, which is always interesting because I think we see artists who are doing well, and we just imagine, and of course the media has us believe that everything's an overnight success, and that's complete bull. As we know, it takes years and lots of hard work and consistency and falling and getting back up to get to where we are. But I've seen you just transform. Now, there's something in your bio that that kind of piqued my interest. You
Oh,
a shaman-like singer. What does that mean?
mhm. Well, well, I added that to my bio to be honest, because many people told me that. They always talk about us, but some hypnosis state, or the way my music make them travel or go into like a alternate state of mind. And it really resonated with me because that's how I feel when I write music or when I'm on stage. When you're like super connected, some people would say you are actually disconnected from the actual reality and connected to something else. Um, and yeah, I think we as artists are connected to another state of consciousness when we are performing, or when we are writing music. And when the audience themselves, through your music, is going through another kind of state of consciousness, to me, that's the very gift. And yeah, I like this shamanic term that I've been hearing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this in my bio because I think that it talks to me the same way I was expressing the way music work. Without you touching it, it has an effect on you, but also on the people. So
Like you can't put your hands on it, yet it touches you.
exactly, yeah, there's something quite magical about music on that. So I think we musicians, we are all magician in a way.
I like that, especially, from knowing you. And I meant to say when I was saying, let's get to know you a little bit better, that when you talked about Creole, you're from the Reunion Islands. And so even though French is the language, there's also, can we say a patois or the Creole that
Yeah, it's a Creole. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's nice to explain what Creole is, because there is this general belief that Creole is a language, and that everyone that speaks Creole speaks the same language. It is not the case. I'm asked often this question, and it's just like well, Creole from Reunion Island is only spoken in Reunion Island. And you can just, take a half an hour plane and go to Mauritius, which is next door. They have a Creole, which is totally different. So yeah. And in the United States, as you know, there is like also all the Louisiana part with the Creole. So you might find some words that are, that you can find in other Creoles here and there, but it's not the same language. And yeah, one of my mother language is Creole from Reunion, and I wanted to use it in my music.
I think that's interesting. I love that you keep that going, you keep that alive through your music. But what I really love about the fact that you actually do have this kind of shaman-like aura to you, it is not something I feel that you've sort of self-proclaimed, I'm a shaman. It just, and I think that makes it a little bit more believable is not the word I'm looking for, but just gosh, I'm at a loss for words. It's not that like you're trying to be weird or you're trying to be mystical, but there is something about you that speaks to a sort of a higher power or a sagesse or a knowing that's been here well beyond your years. And I've always known that about you. There's just something about you like, he's been here before. And the cool thing about it is it comes through your music because your music has a sort of tribal something to it. And I'm sure you've heard that word before
Yeah.
There's a sort of tribal like, and you listen to it and automatically you feel like, well, we're a part of Horus's tribe, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we couldn't be more different. I'm a Black American living in France, and you're from the Reunion Islands, and yet I feel like we're a part of the same tribe when I listen to your music because the music that you write, it touches, literally reaches through the speaker and just kind of grabs you up and pulls you into this other world where there's beauty and there's also ugly. I don't think that you try to disguise things. I think you're telling stories about what is, just, without necessarily a judgment, just this is what is. Take a look at it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm deeply honored that you have all these kind words and that my music resonates. And yes, you are part of my tribe. We're part of the same tribe. And yeah, I always love to talk about many things that well talk about or question things that I I like, or things that I notice, or things that, like you say, that are, and yeah, there's so many things to question in this life. I think we are. Well, I I named my previous album Chimera, because, well, Horus, the Egyptian god, is a chimera as well. He's got the body of a man and the head of a falcon. Um, but I think we all are chimeras, in a way that we are divided, and we are, torn apart, like maybe three parts of ourselves. There is this animal like part you were talking about, like tribal, and, like really organic. And sometimes we're like, yeah, we're animals, but yeah, we're better than that, so we tend to forget that. We put this under the carpet and pretend it's not there, but it is. And then there is this Homo sapiens, that doesn't really sapiens all the time like it should. Like it should. But so we're here. And then we also have this, um, of course, this spiritual connection as well, but, and also this technological, um, being now, because there's the technology is everywhere around us, in our hands, but also more and more into ourselves. So I think we're split between all those parts of us. We are chimeras. We're animal Homo sapiens trying to connect through the internet and being connected to some higher force. So and I think these are the forces that are pulling us together or pulling us apart. So to me, it's like the root of so many things. And so at first I wanted like to acknowledge, that we are those chimeras. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but let's be honest, we are divided sometimes between all those parts of us.
This actually makes me think of a song that you wrote. I think it's called Too Much Information.
Yeah.
Where, it was just like, I think I remember the video just being a whole bunch of pills, and you're like you're covered in pills. Is that the right one? And
Yeah.
we were just bombarded with information. And I think that's a very interesting discussion, because we have this technology that's absolutely exploding again. Like, with AI, it's like
Oh, yeah.
since the invention of the internet, and we don't yet completely understand the repercussions of what that's doing to us. We have a hint and an inkling of what that can do, the good and the bad, but we don't really fully grasp it. We're not going to know for another probably 10 years, what that does. But I think one thing I see with information, one thing I see is that people tend to confuse information with knowledge and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're kind of gourmands, or we're hoarding information, like, oh, let me watch this, and then we're tricked into thinking that because we watch something on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, we are now experts in that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think another thing that is kind of grotesque when it comes to technology and information is that we tend to oversimplify things, which actually leads to us thinking that we know everything, and tending to think that things are just binary. It's like it's either black or white, and so many things
Yeah.
not black or white. So many things are, shades of gray.
Exactly. Everything's on a spectrum to me,
I think
So,
the spectrum, because if you talk about spectrum, then we can talk about neurodivergency, which I find very interesting, that nowadays you've got people almost every day saying, you know what, I've just been diagnosed with ADHD, or I just found out, that I'm on the spectrum of autism. And
Mhm.
and you get to wonder if this many people are being diagnosed as being neurodivergent and on the spectrum of autism, that means we're all somewhere on the spectrum. Could that mean that we're all somewhere, that there is no norm?
Well, what I like to say about norm, this is an interesting word, is that we need to we need to we shouldn't forget that norm is a construct, and that what is normal today wasn't normal and will probably not be normal tomorrow, because it was normal before to have slaves. It was normal for women not to have bank accounts and not wear trousers. It was normal for men with higher power to wear heels and wear, wigs and makeup. That was super manly, back then. But then today, it's not the same norm. So I guess I like to think that everything is on a spectrum, and that we should try, once we acknowledge that norm is a concept that we build. I think we should try and build a norm that is more inclusive rather than exclusive.
Yes.
And once you get to a norm that is inclusive, you have to see the world through the spectrum, because like you said, it's not either black or white in most situations.
Right. Right. Wow. I was not expecting to have that kind of discussion. But it's always, I like that this podcast is really discussions with artists, and whatever's pressing or whatever it is that's on your mind, we can always discuss it, because to me the idea is actually to create a new normal as it pertains to what is an artist. Most of the
Mm,
podcasts are singing artists, but
mm,
all kinds of artists, because I think one of the problems that we have as artists is we don't see enough of the behind the scenes of an artist. And so we think that what we see on stage is what is off stage. And often it's not that at all,
mm.
these conversations is about pulling back the curtain so we can actually see these wonderful
Yeah.
individuals, but who are normal, even though on stage they may do things that are extraordinary, and to us, at the end of the day, we all have to, I'm gonna be crude here, but we all have to shit and fart, and it all stinks.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't do that.
But can I ask you, because I don't think this is a discussion we actually ever had
Uh-huh.
always want to sing?
Always. Yeah.
You're
I couldn't remember I couldn't remember a moment where singing and music wasn't part of my life in a way, because I obviously, well, I had my first singing lessons at the Siam in Bordeaux. So I think I was like 22 or something, or yeah, something like that. So, but even before that, I would sing. There is even like memories that I don't have, that, but my parents showed me pictures, or they were telling me like, yeah, you were so little, and we would know you had a good voice, and so we would put you on the table, give you like a fork, pretending it to be a mic or whatsoever, and you would sing for us, and I was like, okay, wow. So yeah, I think I've always wanted to sing. I've always liked music. I think it has always been some kind of language that was intriguing me and interesting me and talking to me. So yeah.
And so here's what I'm curious about. For every artist that I meet, I'm curious about how you allow yourself to create. And I do choose that word wisely, allow, because I think that sometimes we artists, we suffer with creating is such a spiritual experience. It's such a particular experience. And I think some people don't allow themselves to create. But I've always known you as an extremely creative person. I mean, whether it's the way the way you dress, your lucky hair that you often do. You have one?
Yeah, it should be here somewhere. I don't think you can see it, but it's here.
I remember the first time I was like, "Oh, you have a hair." You're like, "Don't touch it."
well, well, I was created that way. I didn't put it there. So that's not.
You rolled along with it. But I wonder how is it something that you're conscious that you have to allow yourself to do, or it's just so much of a routine that you're like, okay, I'm just creating?
That's a good question. I have to think about it for a sec. To be honest, I've had moments where I would feel stuck creating, but and being at the Siam was one of them. That's weird, but um, because before that, I would try and create. I would write lyrics and create songs, even in like what is it you called like école primaire and collège. So it's like elementary school and secondary school, something like that. So pretty young, and I would even try and write lyrics in English, which was a language that I didn't talk back then, and I didn't really have classes, but I was like trying, So I didn't really care, and I think I was allowing myself to create. And once I did the Siam, which is one of the best choices I've made in my life to, try and learn about music and and grow as an artist. And but then I realized that most of the songs that I did before was like so simple, like 3 chords or 4 chords. And now you discover jazz and you discover so many things, and then you start to judge yourself like, yeah, but in the end, what I do is just super simple, so it might not be super interesting. And so there was a period of time where I would be creating and instantly judging myself, being like, that's shit. That's shit. It's too simple. I have to, overcomplicate it, being like me. But that was just a phase. And in that phase, I had to come back to what made me vibrate and what made me, love music. And it was like the emotion. And I was like, okay, you know what? I could do a song on 2 chords, and I don't know if we're allowed to swear on that podcast. So that's fine.
An E on this episode. Shit, shit, shit.
Great. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. If 2 chords is enough for me to let my soul go and my creativity express itself, and just be able to convey my emotions or whatsoever, I don't care. And so I had to make this effort at that period of time not to judge what I would do um, with the prism of complexity, virtuosity, or whatsoever. And so at that time, I remember I had to allow myself to create again. But after that, now I'm like, I don't, I don't think I'm, I don't think I'm not allowing myself to create. I, I I'm, I'm so I'm so thrilled with well, to me, my life is a creation. The life is a creation, but like for everyone, it's just not like me. It's just like artists. It's just everyone. You're creating every, every morning when you get dressed, you're creating something, because you're like, okay, I'm going to put this with this. And that's you, or the extension of you, or your persona or whatsoever. But it, in a way, there's RuPaul that used to say something like that, like, we were born naked. Everything else is drag. I love this phrase. Yeah, I love him too. So yeah. So there's this, but also once you're, cooking, we both know we love to eat. We love to cook. So
Well, it's good that we love to cook as well.
yeah. I love to cook. I love to eat. I love to create on this. I love to create some of my jewelry, some of my outfits. I love to implicate myself in the creation of the music videos, because every time I write music, I see images and I'm like, okay, I know what I want to see on that music video. So I'm like, there's even one that I totally realized myself and from A to Z. And I was like, okay. So I think the only thing that is preventing me from creating today is just the time, the means, and and that's it. I don't think today I'm stuck in this, but there's it's period of time. I'm talking about the Siam, and sometimes when you know that you have to create now or tomorrow, that could put you in the spotlight. Like the empty yeah, everything goes blank. It's kind of like when you go jamming and you're like, so what song do you know? And you're like, and then you go out and you're like, well, I do this and this and this and this. And then on the spot, you're like, hey, brain freeze, So I think, yeah, creating is more easy when you don't have to create now for tomorrow, like you have an hour and do this. But at the same time, I'm saying this and contradicting myself because I've had a thing with we won with my previous band, which was called Threesome Sisters. We won something called Le Fer, which is like a nice program in France, and they would do this séminaire, picking some people from different groups that won this thing, and they put us together, and we did something really cool that was, so you're going to be in studio A. You've got an hour. You're going to write a song about Tokyo with a guitar solo in English in 6/8. Bye. And you wouldn't even know the person that you were put with. So you're like, this is a human and a musical, um, adventure that was super, super cool because then we would have to create, like for an hour, but it was fun. And we were like, trying and see, trying and be, trying to listen to everyone, to everyone's idea, but at the same time, trying to create pretty fast. And in the end of that week, we came up with so many songs, so many cool stuff that we wouldn't have done otherwise. So I replicated this one time. I was like, okay, try and do things like, what would Sia do? What would this person do? And then it puts you in a mindset like, okay, what's their traits? What are the things that they do that make them them? And so you start to think about phrasing, about the way they build their melodies. And so it puts you also into an analysis. And then you try and make something. So sometimes the limits, the limitations is a bad thing. Sometimes it is the greatest thing to allow creativity.
Absolutely. You just said so much here that I don't even know which one. Well, first of all, as a style vocal coach, one of the things I do is help people to develop their own styles, which means I have to know different styles quite well. And one of the things I always tell people to do is you need to spend time studying different artists so you understand what their essence is. What makes, like you said, what makes Sia? How would Sia sing this phrase? How would Sia write this phrase? How would Sia treat this particular subject? And I think that is such an important part of developing as an artist, whether you're a vocal artist, a visual artist, it doesn't matter. Going back and looking at history and studying different people, like, fashion designers, they're going to know what Dior did at this year or whatever other year, all the different fashion houses. They go and they do those studies so that they are versed in those studies. And then when it comes time to create, they have things to pull from.
Yeah. To me, it's like creating a color palette,
Exactly. So I love that. And of course, yes, when we have constraints, there are actually a lot of people, I hate when I have to do it this way, but it kind of, those constraints, they're just guidelines.
They can help you.
They're not rigid, completely rigid, but they definitely can help pull things out because the truth is, even though we can be highly creative and we have lots of things to say, if we just throw it out there haphazardly, it doesn't really come together. Having some sort of constraint can be, as you said, very useful into giving structure to the creativity that you have.
Totally. Yeah.
But what I'm loving is that, what I'm understanding about you is that you're creative all the time. It's almost like as if you're not necessarily saying, I'm going to sit down and create now. You're creative in how you cook and how you dress. You create jewelry. When you create the music, you see the visual, like it's just all the time. Does that sound right?
It is all the time. Actually, it is really rare for me to like sit down and have like a residency with myself, you know. I've done that from time to time, like being like, okay, this is a moment where you're gonna create. And I did that for one of my previous EPs. I remember I went to Salazie in like, it's in the middle of the island, like beautiful place, beautiful scenery in the middle of nowhere. So I was like for a week there, and I didn't have any friends to see, any things to do. It was like dedicated to music, you know?
Okay. Sorry. No, I was freaked out because I was thought that I didn't push the record button. I'm like,
I saw you. I was like, uh-oh.
no,
Oops.
but I'm assuming it is. It's just I'm not used to recording with this particular recorder, so that's
Okay, cool. So yeah, I did that. But most of the time, I'm just creating on the spot. I could be in the supermarket and just take my phone and my dictaphone, you know, my um, vocal memos app, and being like, boom, boom, and whatever, you know, idea come to my mind, and just be. And so now I'm even getting better at taking notes, because sometimes it's in random places, so you can't sing loud. And so most of the time, I'm just like humming something, and then when I listen back, I'm like, what is the key? I don't get it. What are you saying? So now what I do is just like, I just say, okay, so the rhythmic is this. So it's a 1, 2, 3. Oh, the key is do, 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 2, 3. And then I sing my melody, so that, because it's super clear in my mind, but I know that when I'm going to listen back to it, I'm like, what the fuck? And so, yeah, I'm creative on the spot. Ideas can come, and I just try and grab them, and then I just take them and develop. I know that I have some moments in my life where I just listen back to what I've recorded, you know, when I go on the plane, which is um, pretty often when I'm touring and stuff like that. I don't know why, but this is a time where, you know, I just open my folder and just go through many things and be like, oh, that was nice. Oh, that was cool. Oh, let me do something with this next time, you know, and so I just go back to what I have, you know, put in my drawers, and then create with it. But yeah, it could be anywhere. It's not always like me sitting at, you know, my piano or taking a guitar and doing stuff like that. Then I just arrange with what I got and with my computer on my DAW and whatsoever. So then it becomes a thing. So I'm sat at a desk, obviously, but the creation itself is like an everyday process, you know?
Mm. I really appreciate you talking about this because I often have lots of bits and pieces of ideas. I've got stuff been floating around in my brain for years, and I still haven't done anything with it. But that's a different podcast episode. But the fact that you actually do go back and do something with it, I think that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because yeah. So you put everything in one spot. Because I'm
Well, most of the time it's my voice memo, and then it's also connected to my computer. So whether I'm in, I'm with my phone or my computer, I can go back to the voice memo. So most of the time I write like idée, which is like a thought in French, but I'll just write like ID, the two letters ID,
okay.
and whatever feeling I had, or or the place where I was, like it could be like a Ide supermarket whatsoever, or raclette, Ide raclette, it has no, but then if it's like some sort of like a dark reggae or whatsoever, I'll put like Ide dark reggae. And so once I'm on my phone and just going back to this, I just, press ID and then I have the list of all the memos of Ides that I have and just go through them, because they're here. And yeah, I do have a lot that I've never used and probably will never. I don't know. But sometimes I just go back to something and it just resonates with what I'm leaving or what I'm living or what I want to say, what I want to do or, a particular feeling. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this. Yeah, this really resonates with me now, Yesterday, maybe I was like, "Nyeh," but today I'm like feeling it. So let's use it.
Nice. So I want to move into a different discussion. You have been touring rather heavily for the last how many years now?
I don't know. Because it's like back and forth. I'm really bad with the timeline.
Well, you've done some major things. I mean, you're traveling all over the world. You're working with some top names. Can you drop a few names for us? Because I like the name.
You like the name dropping.
I do.
Well,
Let me tell you why. Because I think often artists don't pay themselves flowers, like give themselves flowers for the things that they've accomplished. I think we're really hard on ourselves and we're like, that was nothing. It's like, dude, you played with X. Like, let me drop a name. You actually sang backup at least one time with Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, well, it was three times. Three times. It was with gospel for your family. We were a happy few to be able to sing for this.
Y'all, but I was pregnant.
Oh my God.
I was supposed to do that.
Oh yeah.
My stomach, I'm like, damn, baby.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, so I'm not going to talk too long about this. No, but it was awesome. I mean, it was supposed to be a one-time thing. But then he had his two last gig of the European tour in Monaco. And so we went to Monaco. He asked us to come to Monaco for the last two gigs as well. So we were thrilled. I mean, just being on stage. I never seen Stevie Wonder live. So for me, even like seeing him, hearing him live was, an adventure. So the hardest thing for me on those shows, even the first one, it was Les Arènes de Nîmes, was to stay focused. It wasn't like the musical parts or whatsoever. It was just like, don't just, because he was just, I'm short, so I was like in the front line of the chorus. And so he was just like right here. And I was like, you have to pay attention and not be like,
Starstruck.
And so I was like, yeah, it's just normal. That's Stevie Wonder. And I'm singing back and, for him, this, that was the hardest part. But yeah, it was super intense. I also worked with Yael Naï, with Fred Wesley, Charles Aznavour with you. You remember? We did that in the studio. I did, many, artists from Reunion as well, and also many great musicians. Cause I was called for the Yamaha drum shows. And so they had, the drummer from, the David Bowie's drummer, like so many big names. And I was singing lead on the song that they were playing to the showcase. And so, yeah, I will not be able to name them all, but it was like big drummers, big names. I had the chance to, yeah. We did an album together. Yeah. It was produced by Richard Bona, and it was with Sylvain Luc. Rest in peace, my man.
I did an album with Diddy Ceccarelli, produced by Richard Bona. Like, what?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, with Sylvain Luc, Adrien Ferraud, and then with Adrien Ferraud, he called me I wrote stuff on his music, and we played it at New Morning with Dennis Chambers and all that. So that was that was super cool.
That's crazy.
Super, super cool.
That's
Yeah.
so that kind of leads me to one question I had is what is your idea of success as an artist for you?
Well, my answer today and now would be my would be to have the means to create most of the things that I have in mind. And
And by means you mean financial means.
most of the time, yeah. Yeah, most of the time that's the thing that is not following. I'm like, well, there's this and time also. But once you have money, you can, um, you can buy time in a way. So yeah, to me, that would be a hell of a success. Being totally free, being limitless towards what I want to create and just do it. I want to do it. Oh, I have this thing with strings in my mind. You know what? Oh, let me call a few great, let me call an ensemble and tell them, yeah, come and play,
Yeah.
that is like a luxury to me. It's just like, oh my God. And, so that would be, if thanks to my music, I'm able to do that. To me, that's a total freaking success. And yeah, and of course I want this music to be heard, but most of the time I say I'm not. What I would love for my music to be heard, but I would also love to be able to just walk and go buy my baguettes without being recognized. Which is because I know that some people do it for the fame or whatsoever. I'm not doing it for the fame. I want my music to be heard because it's what I do, and I want my music to find its audience, and the bigger the audience, the better, of course, that, but it's not for the fame, and it's just like, yeah, yeah, that's what I always say today.
That's interesting because I always said, I'm not into being famous either because I always want to be able to pick out my own tomatoes.
That's it.
I love tomatoes. I love a good tomato, and I don't really want anybody else picking out my tomatoes. I want to be able to pick out my own tomatoes. Oh wow, that's it's so nice to hear somebody who's done what you've done and are doing what you're doing just be so, feet on the ground, you know.
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes I've got my head in the clouds as well, but yeah.
There's definitely that otherworldly dimension to you, but it's never felt like I'd have to say it in French, perché. I've never found you completely perché. I mean, you are anchored.
Mm,
There is something very anchored about you. Perché just kind of means spiritually really out there, where it's like this person is completely
yeah.
flying and they're never touching the ground. I never got that
Mm,
impression about you. Now, what's interesting about what you said about um success, saying, having the financial and the time means to create what you want. But yet, and this goes back to our discussion about constraints, look what you've been able to do with the time and money constraints that you've had.
yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm proud of what I've accomplished and proud of what I did, and but there's a part of me that is a little frustrated, sometimes because well, I'm an independent artist. I have a lot of people around me. I have a manager, I have an editor, I have you know a tour manager as well. But I don't have a label yet, and so I'm producing my music. I'm just, you know, uh, yeah, independent artist. And so it's good because I have the freedom to do whatever I want. But at the same time, sometimes I spend more time trying and finding the money and finding the means to do what I want to do than doing music sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, you know what? So I'm proud of what I did, but I know that I would love to have a little more more freedom in the music sphere, to really like do the music making and not trying to find the funds to make it happen, you know?
Maybe I have to get you hooked up with a friend of mine who's a crowdfunding coach. Her name is Jess. I'll have to,
Okay.
I'll get you her information. She's a crowdfunding coach and she helps people raise 5, 10, 30,000 euros for their project.
Wow.
So I'll get you hooked up with her because she's really cool.
Oh, cool. I would appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks.
I want to talk about a few other things. I want to talk about, since you've been doing this for a while and I've known you for a while, talk about keeping your voice in good shape.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Do you have a routine or a ritual?
I have to be totally transparent and say that, well, I'm also a vocal coach and I do some classes and master classes and stuff like that. And I often say that practice is the key, that it's better if you practice 5 or 10 minutes a day than, do 1 hour every other week. So that's what I say, but that's not what I've been doing for many times, so I'm like, I know what I should do, but sometimes I just don't do it. And I'm now in a moment in my life where I'm trying to find a balance in that. So I've always wanted to take care of my voice, especially because I started with what I felt was an impaired voice. Well, I felt like because of big acid reflux, I felt like, when I first met you just before coming to the Siam, I was like, hey, here is your voice. Today you have an octave. Bye. And you're like, oh, but yesterday I had 2. Yeah. And that would be it. And so you're like, okay, I'm limited. Why is that? So I wanted to understand the technique. I wanted to work on the technique. And I found you. And I'm really grateful for this. And yeah, I'm still taking, lessons with you when I have the time. So it's not like often, it's not like every week, but like you say, like, as when I'm not on tour and I have a little time on myself to do the work, I do the work. And I noticed as well that now I'm trying to, because my new repertoire is more challenging. So now I'm like really warming my voice up before shows. Before that, I would sing in more, comfortable places in my voice. And so I would be like, I'm ready, like, yeah, no. And I would do a proper warm up. Just if I felt tired, if I felt limited, then I would try and grab as much as my instrument could give me on that day. But on the good days, I would be like, I'm good, let's go. But now I know I can't, because sometimes you're gigging too much and your voice is just tied through the planes and the rehearsals and the, sound check, and then the concert and another show and another show. And so I have to be more cautious. And, so I'm trying now to have a better routine and just, try and work a little bit every day. But sometimes I just don't for many days and then come back to it. So I'm not being like super, super strict about it, but I think I'm getting better and better at this over the years.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. The life of an artist is not linear, and it's not 9 to 5. So we can't always do the same things on the same day at the same time. So there is that thing that we're having to work with. But one thing I know about you is, even if you're not necessarily taking a lesson or warming up your voice, you're singing every day. It's not, It's not like you're going to go weeks without ever using your instrument, which is very different from somebody who's starting out. When you're starting out, you've got to build up. I was going to say,
you have to use your instrument.
You have to use your instrument to become intimate with it. Starting out, building a foundational technique is going to be important. Now, you said something that's really interesting. As you continue to write, you write things that require more technique for your voice. So now you've got to do more studying. And I think that's great, because I think technique for technique's sake That's crap. The only reason we do technique, well, there's two reasons. To be able to sing what it is we hear, because
Yeah.
that's fulfillment as an artist, as a vocalist. The second is to be able to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think the truth is, you know, when we say, yes, you should sing every day for 15 minutes, and yeah, that's all great and lovely. And, you know, sometimes we need rest. Sometimes we're depressed. Sometimes we have just way too many things pulling at us. It just is what it is. But what I know about you is that when you are in your downtime, when you're not on tour, you're not in the studio, I see you usually for like a concentrated period, and then you'll go
Mm.
back out into the world, and I won't see you again for many, many months. And you're using the information that you have. And
Yeah.
if some for some reason you need something, you can always come back and say, hey, this is what
Yeah.
actually that's really what it is. I mean, we build that baseline technique, and then the needs of our technique is determined by what it is we're trying to do with our voice.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a life process, to be honest. And it's funny because many people, when I say that, yeah, I take singing lessons from time to time with you, and they're like, you are taking singing lessons?
Yeah.
As if, I was somewhere where, well, you're doing shows, you're singing well, it's fine, you're there. And I'm like, no, I mean, it's a life process. You have to take care of this instrument. You have to, and I think that the voice, and which is one of the most marvelous thing about it, is just that it's it's a game field that is infinite. So you always learn about the voice. You always learn about your voice and what it could do and what it can do. And so to me, it's just infinite in the way that there's so many things to explore. But even if you stay in the same comfort zone, let's say, well, like you said, you have to do it for a long time. You have to do it, in the right way, not to be tired or whatsoever. Or if you just know that you're getting out of there in a bad way, let's say, you know where to come back from. You know where to come back to. So you know where is your middle ground. So it makes you able to just go and try some dangerous things from time to time, because you know where you're coming back to. If you don't know where you're coming back to, so if you don't build your technique or whatsoever, then you can go out and then never know where your comfort zone is and just be lost in the oblivion of so many things that could go wrong with your voice. And so I'm trying to, because sometimes I know that I'm going there and there and just coming back to recenter myself with this middle ground. And yeah, I know that when I'm live, I'm not always in this middle ground. I'm like, I'm just out there. And the fact that I know that what my middle ground is just what allows me to go away from it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, when you think you're departing really far, you're not actually trashing your instrument. It's not like I have to completely put you back together again. One thing I know about you is that your schedule itself is very hard. So you might have a tired voice, not from what you're doing with your voice, just from lack of sleep and lack of rest, because you're constantly using your instrument. You use your instrument um, in a very professional way, which means a lot of use. So that in itself can make, doing what you do normally very easily with your voice a bit more difficult, you know? But, and then there's one other aspect to that. There's age. Now, neither you nor I are yet at the age where I'm closer to the age where my voice will eventually start changing, and I'll have to make adaptations in order to maintain a high vocal standard. And it's just about rebalancing, making sure that the things that I'm asking my voice to do are things that my voice should be doing at the age that I'm at. And it's not a number. It's just that we'll start to say, oh, my voice doesn't quite want to be, won't allow me to be as aggressive as when I was a certain age. And so
Yeah,
taking voice lessons is going to be about that as we get older and older. I mean,
of course.
I have my weekly lessons. They're, to me, they're important to me as an artist because I still do tour, but they're also important to me as a voice teacher because I learned so much about the voice. But before I let you go, I want to talk about your latest EP.
Yeah. It's called Urban Myth. It came out last month. A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe. Um, and yeah, it's 4 tracks that is, available on any platform. There is the music video for the track called Filter Freak. And yeah, it talks about many things. There's one that is called The Quarry. And basically, through the metaphor of a quarry, so you have this like mine with stones, like quarry stone, but also quarry is a prey as well. Um, and no, a prey, when you're a prey from a predator, a prey. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like this, these two meanings of the songs. And that's what I use to talk about addiction and also addiction to work. Um, and so there's a connection with what we were saying just before, because sometimes you're paving the path to well, your success or whatsoever, but you're paving the path to go somewhere. Um, and sometimes you're just building a labyrinth and you get lost in it, and it talks about that because sometimes there's a line that says, sometimes my muse consumes me. It's kind of like, I think, well, to me, it's just my opinion. In my experience, to me, it's the danger of loving what you do, being passionate about what you do, because it's the best thing, but it's also the worst thing when you cannot disconnect from it. It's not, like you said, like a 9 to 5 job. You just, you come home and you unplug your brain and you're in another aspect of your life. When you're an artist or any other profession, when you're passionate about, those passion job, that's something you have to pay attention to, because sometimes it can devour you. It can, I see today a lot. I've been through there, but I see so many artists going through burnout as well. So it exists on other jobs and professions, of course, but yeah, that's the people I know the most. So I know it's more and more of that. And I wanted to talk about this addiction, job addiction, passion addiction. And then there's also a track called, well, Filter Freak. It's about all the filters, kind of like a virtual, you know, um, well, how do you say that? I'm losing my English. Chirurgie esthétique, like, um, plastic surgery. It's kind of like a virtual plastic surgery, because we had the filters that was like, oh, a bunny, whatsoever, but now it's just like change shape of yourself. And that's weird, because I read something about how the younger generation don't really look at themselves in the mirror anymore. They see themselves through the screens, and most of the time there is filters. So you're kind of losing your sense of self. Like, so I was questioning this on that track. And then there's another one that is Modern Witchcraft, which depicts the screens and the advertisement and all the things that are written in the public space. And it's kind of like they were totems, like from, casting spells, because you think you don't see it. You think it's not influencing you, but it is. And then it just comes, it's sorcery. So I wanted to, on this Urban Myth EP, I wanted to talk about all of this, because it's our everyday life. It's things we know, we see, but then what's underneath that, and there is something mystical in, even in this super modern worlds, and urban worlds, that there's some witchcraft underneath all that.
Wow. Well, I tend to think that I like the kind of witchcraft that you do, because the kind of witchcraft that you do, it elevates people. It makes people.
Oh, thank you.
I think with humanity, you're bringing people back to the essence of what life and creation is. You're bringing us back to a tribe. So there's this sort of togetherness. So I'll take your sort of witchcraft over everything else any sort of day. But I know how busy.
Oh, thank
I
you.
want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule.
My pleasure.
I will drop all your information so that people can see all your social media stuff, and also follow you for your project, your EP, listen to it. And when's your next tour? Do you have anything coming up soon?
Well, September, I'm going back on the road. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Can I just say how proud I am of you, Bastien? And it's just great to know you. It's always been great to know you. And I've always kind of known that you were going somewhere. I didn't know where, but I it was like this guy really, really, really has something special. And
oh, thank you so much.
The special thing about it is just that you're just so human and so loving and caring, that you've stayed that way, even with the kind of success that you've built. Because one can say, as an artist, you have a very successful career, and I know that you'll only continue to be so. So thank you so much for being who you are.
Oh, thank you, and thank you so much. I'm so glad that our path, came together, crossed, because like you said, from 2005, we've seen each other evolve together. We've evolved together. I've evolved thanks to you also, vocally and technically. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be invited to your podcast, your podcast today.
And one last thing, you probably don't know this, but as I've been watching what you do, you've also helped me, because I'm very interested in people's processes and how they create. And so when I'm thinking about creating, often when I'm doing a lot more recording now. It's
nice.
Still for other people, I'm creating for other people. But when I'm doing that, I'm often thinking about you. I'm also often thinking about you in your studio in Paris, under your bunk bed where you would record all these different things. And that, just watching you do that, it's like, yeah, he's done that. I can give myself permission, because I am in a place where I have to literally force myself to create music. I create other things.
Allow yourself.
Well, I say sometimes I have to force myself to allow myself, if that makes any sense. But when I see somebody like you, that it's just always, you're just kind of living, breathing creation, I'm like, you know what? That's where it's at. That's where it's at. So thank you so much, Bastien, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're really liking what I'm throwing down, you'll love my Mike Masters newsletter. For more information on how to work with me and to sign up for the newsletter, visit www.moniquebthomas.com. That's www.moniquebthomas.com. Musically, Monique.